Welcome to Southern Fried Baseball, brought to you by College Baseball Central, bringing you 90 feet closer to the greatest show on dirt. Here are your hosts.
Welcome back, college baseball fans. Week 3 is behind us. We got week 4, kind of the last hoorah, if you will, before conference play. A lot of these teams, it was their last chance to get some exciting non-conference tournaments in. Nick, how are we doing this weekend?
Good. It was a very fun weekend. We got to see obviously a lot of teams traveling for tournaments. Florida going down to Miami, Auburn hosting Nebraska. So there's a lot of good baseball on TV, and it felt a lot more like what we're going to see in an SEC weekend.
Yeah, there was a ton of, if you will, super regional or regional previews. That Mississippi State UCLA game on Sunday night was probably the game of the year. Let's start with some of the tournaments that really kind of didn't live up to the billing, or teams that didn't really play anybody tough. What do you think about Georgia and Kentucky playing kind of these lighter schedules? I know St. John's is a little bit of a tough opponent, but those are the only two SEC tournament teams outside of Missouri that didn't play in tournaments. What do you think of their kind of non-conference slates as they start to wind down?
I mean, it's, as a fan, it's a little frustrating, but obviously, I get it to a certain extent. It's especially Georgia, for one, with all the transfers. I can see it where it's like, hey, we'd rather have these 4 weeks to let our team mesh and actually find the, I guess, best lineup and best combination of starting pitching and bullpen that we're ready to go into SEC play. Especially, you're looking at how many different lineups they've tried. That's one thing where it's like, it's not like they're going to get punished if they go to a tournament and lose. It's not a great look. I mean, Vandy, we'll see, because that obviously is unexpected, and we'll talk about them in a second. But yeah, I mean, obviously as a fan, you'd want to see them play more teams. But as we know in this conference, it all comes down to those 30 games towards the end of the season on weekends that really matter.
Yeah, the only thing for me with Georgia and even to some extent Texas is you don't really know how good some of these guys are. I mean, like I said, Georgia's been on cruise control, it seems like, all year. I know that they dropped that midweek to Troy, but I mean, they played Oakland in 4 games this weekend, and Oakland didn't even come close to beating them in doubleheaders. So it'll be really interesting kind of who's for real and who's not with this Georgia, especially this Georgia staff, because they had so many guys that they brought in. They are an older team, so that is kind of the one thing. But again, I would have liked the tournaments. Kentucky, again, it's what they did this weekend kind of feels like what they're going to have to do in SEC play. It was dominant starting pitching. Ben Cleaver only threw 3 innings, and it was the bullpen behind him. And actually, that was one of my players of the week, was Connor Matheson coming in behind him, slamming the door. But, I mean, this is probably going to be how Kentucky has to win games until they get Tyler Bell back. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not sure how much Tyler Bell, obviously he's one of the best players in the country for a reason, going to be a super high draft pick. But, I mean, you're looking at those scores, 3 runs, 3 runs, 3 runs. How much does he add to that? And this St. John's pitching staff, you said St. John's isn't bad. That's not like a terrible opponent, but that's not going to be an SEC pitching staff or anywhere close.
No,
So
not at all. I do want to clarify that when I say St. John's is decent, I mean compared to Oakland and other schools. It's not an SEC caliber team at all.
Yeah, so there is a little bit of concern there. They also, I mean, we're also coming off a week where they got shut out by Evansville on a Sunday also. So, the offense could be an issue, which we didn't think it would be. I mean, we didn't think it was going to be like super high powered compared to the rest of the SEC, but we also,
I thought it was going to be average.
Yeah, exactly.
This is one of the worst offenses in the SEC through 3 weeks.
As of right now. Yeah, it's in that ballpark too, with having no power guys. It's not like they're hitting. It's not like they're being Oklahoma, where it's also they're hitting gap to gap and really getting doubles, triples on top of some kind of big timed home runs. So unless that comes during SEC play, yeah, this pitching is going to really have to be relied on.
And they're not as athletic as Oklahoma, and I think that that's a good transition into the Oklahoma Sooners because they had, I would say, one of the weirder weeks because they had a 2-game split with Arizona State, but they get blown out on Tuesday. And then they play Gonzaga and blow them out 2 games and then lose Sunday. I still feel the same way about Oklahoma. I know this weekend, this 5 games were kind of B-C work from them, but again, I think it's a solid squad. And what we saw Friday and Saturday, I think, is what's going to be more the norm for them. Just a really athletic, rangy lineup that's just a grind to get through.
Yeah, I know. On our Thursday show, we spoke about Arizona State last week, and that's no shame. Like we saw Arizona State like held their own this weekend in Arlington. So that, I mean, obviously getting beat by whatever it was 15 is not ideal on Tuesday. But then, so this weekend, I mentioned it when we talked about it. I said this is going to be Gonzaga's not a team to sleep on. You're also going to sleepwalk through to a sweep, and I feel like that's kind of what happened. I think the the issue with them was they beat Gonzaga so bad on Friday and Saturday, they kind of sleptwalked into Sunday. And hey, good teams, decent teams will make you pay for that. When a team like Gonzaga is going to rely on RPI wins, they knew they had to steal one at some point this weekend, and they showed up Sunday, and Oklahoma really didn't.
Yeah, they looked flat. They looked about how they looked on
Yep.
Tuesday against Arizona State. I think it's kind of a little bit of a blessing in disguise. I know that they still have to figure out some of their, I guess, picks with outfield because it still kind of feels like they're cycling through 5 guys. All of them have kind of done good enough. They're all really, really athletic. Drew Dickerson's probably their biggest power threat out of that group.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that's really the only thing between now and SEC plays. Just can they get that outfield solidified? And again, they had it inside the Parker. They still have no fans showing up. I feel like they're kind of just playing a long game. It feels like.
Yeah, it really does. That's what we said it like after they had as good a weekend and weekend one as they could have possibly had. And then we'll see what we knew we weren't going to find out a whole lot more until SEC weekend starts. And that's still the case with them for me.
We'll kind of stay negative here. Vanderbilt obviously goes 0-3. I was able to watch that Oregon game on Sunday. To me, it looked like just different tiers of programs when I was watching that game in the wheels. It just is. It really is kind of a shame that Vandy's fallen as far as they are, but it really just feels like they're going to be just the Freddie Johnson, Connor Parsi. So, and outside of that, the lineup's just going to go 3 up, 3 down every time. There's no really range in this lineup, and they don't even really have competitive at bats either. I think that's kind of the scariest thing for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. We've said this. I think that weekend in Arlington was fool's gold about their offense. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, look how much power they have!" But it really came from 2 or 3 guys, like you just said, and that's what it looked like this weekend in a ballpark that's usually pretty hitter friendly too. Like, don't get me wrong. But they also, in fairness to them, if I'm going to take the high road on Vandy, which I'm not how them. I mean, I don't have them ranked. I couldn't remember if you had them ranked today either.
I did not.
But they faced pretty much 3 aces this weekend. So that is one thing where you can kind of go, if you're going to take, hey, the glass is half full type approach. Trevor Hansen for UCI is going to be a first-round draft pick. We know Smith Bailey for Arizona is going to be a first-round draft pick. And people are probably just now getting introduced to, I think it was it Devin Bell that started or I can't remember who started that week 3 game, but or the Sunday game. He was like I think he was like a D2 pitcher of the year or something, so it was a case of facing 3 really good starters. Now, their Vandy starters were
it was
Scolari. Scolari, that's right. Okay,
Scolari, yeah. 6 innings, 2 hits, 2 walks, 8 Ks.
He was, I think, WCC pitcher of the year last year. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, obviously the averages when you go and look at it is they're going to be a little bit inflated because they've played Marist. They've played some pretty weak midweeks. But, I mean, they just didn't look competitive against Oregon. And I get it's Sunday, and maybe they were trying to get out of town, but they really didn't look that competitive at times in Arlington either. And this is now both times they faced good competition. They've just looked outclassed.
Yeah, and, I mean, they're supposed to be carried by their pitching staff, and Connor Fennell hasn't quite been the same as last year. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been good. Austin Nye, in fairness, left, I think, in the 2nd inning with, it sounds like, forearm tightness or cramps. I haven't gotten a full release of what that was exactly. And then Nate Taylor, being their Sunday guy, he wasn't a starter at Georgia, and I don't think a lot of people in this industry expected him to be like Vandy's Sunday starter or to really like be so much better now at Vandy than he was at Georgia. So that's where kind of the concern comes in, was where this team where we already had the question marks about the offense. But hey, it's like while they figure it out on offense, their pitching staff will be able to carry them. It's not doing that right now. So then it's like, okay, if they both kind of struggle, where are the wins going to come from?
Yeah, and again, I'll talk about this when we talk about Texas with some of the guys that they have hitting, but Brady Johnson's not going to hit 370 the entire year in the SEC.
No.
He's just not. And he kind of feels like their whole offense. I know that they got John Stone. I know that they got a few other guys. But it really does kind of feel like – it reminds me of Ike Irish with Auburn like 2 years ago when he was a sophomore, when they were really bad. It was Ike Irish and then everybody else. That really is the vibe I'm getting off of this Vandy team, is that Auburn team that just cratered. Which not a good comparison. Not the Auburn from last year that won the SEC, or that won 11 straight SEC weekends. The Auburn from the year before. It's a bad team. And I'll pose this question, because this was kind of the talk of the press box. Is Missouri and South Carolina are going to be your 15 and 16, like always. Who's that 14th of the Texas A&M 2025 that disappoints, that some weekends they're good, some weekends they're bad, but ultimately they miss out on the tournament? Who's that 14th SEC team that goes like 11 and 19 in the SEC?
I think it's still up in the air. I think it could still be Vandy. I think, crazy to say, because I have them ranked right now, I think, because we already talked about it, it could be Kentucky if they don't figure things out on the offensive side of the ball. Ole Miss, I'm still a lot of questions about Ole Miss. I mean, I wasn't extremely high on them coming into the year. They started off the season pretty well. Hunter Elliott, big question is, Hunter Elliott threw very well on Friday, and they still figured out a way to lose to Baylor. The offense didn't really show up in that big park. So, yeah, I think between those three teams are kind of going to be battling to kind of who's going to be that last team that can really fight into the tournament and who is a big letdown.
Yeah, that's the one for me, and that's a good transition into that Houston tournament, as Ole Miss and Texas have completely different weekends. I was there Friday when they played Baylor, and Hunter Elliott, I would say, grinded through his start. He had kind of a rough first inning, and then he really, really settled in, and then the bullpen behind him was unclutch. And outside of Becerra, they didn't really do anything offensively Friday, and that was kind of more of the same on Sunday against Coastal. And I'll say this, I'll put this out there, and this can get clipped. That's a bad Coastal team. They did not look very good on Friday. They kicked the ball around. They didn't really have anybody in the bullpen that could spin it. Texas played like a C-plus game and blew Coastal out. And I think that's embarrassing that Ole Miss got blown out by that Coastal team. And I think that really kind of shows you a lot of red flags of, hey, this is the first true test of the season, and they lose to a Baylor team that's probably in the 70s or 80s and a Coastal team that's probably worse. Yes, they dominated Ohio State, but, I mean, these are bad losses. And these are glaring red flags if you're Ole Miss.
I don't think Coastal's a bad loss at all. I think Coastal is a much more talented team than Ole Miss is. They're better than Ole Miss. I mean, we're talking about a team who is, yes, they're mentally going through some stuff, which is, it's a little bit excusable. You lose your top two arms. So basically Friday, you're throwing your Sunday guy, you're throwing your midweek guy on a Saturday and piecing stuff together. So
they didn't really have any arm that impressed me outside of the starter. I should add that too. So it's like the guys that you would have theoretically brought in behind Flukie. That was where I think a lot of the issues were. In the defense just looked terrible for Coastal.
Yeah, and it's also, especially on a Sunday, it's also it's a very proud program. It's a very good head coach where it's like, okay, we have not shown up here as we showed the first 2 days. We need to come out of here with a win. We're going to do whatever we can. I think that's what great programs do. Kind of like Coastal. It's where like Ole Miss didn't have that extra gear they could hit on Sunday, even though they needed to win. Where it's like Coastal knew they needed to win, had that extra gear, and said, "There's no way we're getting beat on this. There's no way we're going 0-3, traveling to Houston. So we need to take care of business," and they did.
Yeah, I could kind of see that. I'll say this about Ole Miss. Again, they played Nevada, Missouri State, who isn't bad, Arkansas State in a midweek, who again beat Arkansas. But the clear step up that's supposed to mimic a regionals where they really got exposed. Again, Ole Miss is an old team like Georgia. Is this kind of a little bit of a minor version of what we might see from Georgia week 1 of SEC play of, they didn't play bad against Baylor, but they didn't really have that big clutch hit. I don't really know what to think of this Ole Miss team. Like, part of me thinks that they could get hot and be a top, 8 in the SEC. And another part of me is like, God, the team that I saw yesterday, like, that reminds me of Ole Miss. Like, in the 2 years after the national championship. I was like, they just looked terrible. Like they didn't want to be there.
They definitely have their moments. They're a very strange team, hard to figure out so far. It's also part of it. The big question mark is Cade Townsend going to keep pitching as well as he's pitching, because he's throwing a lot better than kind of preseason expectations were. What's Will Libbert going to be like? What's Hudson Calhoun going to continue to throw well? So we'll kind of see from that standpoint. But yeah, this is a very, very up and down team for me so far, or at least a team that's hard to get a good read on.
I know when I talked to Bianco after, he just said that they didn't really have competitive at bats down the stretch, and that's kind of the thing that I saw Friday too. Was again, they were really good in that middle innings of chasing the Baylor starter, and then it felt like they kind of let Baylor off the hook once they got into that bullpen, and they didn't really punish them at all. But the other team that had a complete 180 of the weekend, the Texas Longhorns, absolutely rolled through Houston. They beat Coastal Carolina 8-1. Baylor, they beat 5-2. Ohio State, they beat 10-3 yesterday. I want to lump Texas in with Georgia, where I don't know how good they are. These are three teams that I thought that they were going to handle, and I didn't think they played very good against Coastal on Friday night. I went back and watched the Baylor game. Baylor kind of gave it away as Texas scored 3 runs on a ball that the right fielder forgot how to field. And Ohio State on Sunday, Texas is going to beat 90 out of 100 times. But how about that's all the negative that I'll get out on Texas. But what did you think of Texas this weekend?
Well, let me ask you this real quick. Like, what do you have question marks about for Texas?
And again, this is one of those things where it's very similar to Georgia, where you have so much talent and so much elite guys that I'm kind of putting them on a pedestal of being really critical about them. So I do want to preface that while I'm being critical of Texas, I think that this is a team that could win the national championship. But it's a lot of guys that are very experienced, that are doing things that they haven't done their previous 2 years, like Ashton Larson hitting 340, Timo hitting 2 home runs in one night after hitting 1 last year. That's the only thing that worries me are they going to be like all high and mighty, and then when they get punched in the mouth in SEC play, they don't know how to respond? I mean, there's numerous times where we've talked about that with SEC teams where they've been so hot, so good, and then they get into SEC play, like Bama last year, for example, where, I know I was really high on them, and then they just kind of ran out of gas down the stretch. The good news is that Texas has the steep staff, but do you think the lineup's going to be able to put up as many runs as they've had these first couple of weeks?
I think they're going to be able to put up as much as they need to because of that pitching staff, and that's where I am not concerned at all. I mean, you look at how many games, like you say, they didn't play well against Coastal, but like I said, I think Coastal good. They started Luke Jones, who is no joke, even though had to start on a Friday. But how many games do you think they lose this year if they put up 8? Like
8-0.
That's what I mean.
They lose
very
0
few
games.
runs. So if they're putting up 7 to 8 runs a game, I think they are in a great spot. This isn't a team that it's not going to be like Georgia, and it's not going to be like some of these. I think Tennessee, or not Tennessee, that's a bad example. I would say like Ole Miss, I guess, Mississippi State, where it's like we have so many questions about the pitching staff. It's like, okay, there's going to be some weekends where they're going to need to put up 9, 10, 11 runs to win 2 of the 3 games. I don't see that with Texas. I think their pitching staff is so good, and this offense is so well balanced. You mentioned it; the guys that have transferred in are like just hitting so much better than even could be expected. Aiden Robbins is a dog.
He's added power. He looks big, by the way. I got to finally see him like really up close. He looks like he's added probably like 10 pounds of muscle. Like,
you hit the train on a Friday there, then that's no joke. Tenney appears. This was Tenney's best weekend in my opinion. It didn't, like, the stats didn't like really show it.
He had a lot of high quality ABs.
Yeah, but his ABs were better. I think he hit the ball hard. He's still taking his wall, and I think the difference between this year's Tenney and last year with Notre Dame, and the reason he struck out so much, is that he felt like he had to do so much for that Notre Dame offense and kind of carry them. Whereas at Texas now, especially with how this lineup has been, he knows that, hey, if he walks, the next guy can hit a 2-run bomb or hit a double and knock him in. Ethan Mendoza has been good. We talked about what was this outfield going to be. Pack has still been good. I was surprised how good Jonah Williams has been, like, out of the chute, at least getting on base.
He's just such a spark plug for him.
Yeah. And I think that attitude, especially in him and kind of Aiden Robbins being those like spark plug types, where it's like, hey, like we're gonna bring attitude and try to shut us up. So I mean,
Yeah, he's very vocal. Like I know I got to sit down in the camera well. His at bats are just like I think some like remember the last year when he went viral for Florida? He does that like every single time. Like he doesn't
yeah,
want to walk.
he's like
And
bat
he's very
flipping walks and
vocal in
he's
the
mad.
dugout.
Yeah,
Like he feels like the leader of this team despite not being there in the fall. Before we move on, I have a crazy statement because I got to see Ruger Riojas up in like close. And again, he's a 95 guy who his changeups, I think, his best pitch. Is it crazy to say that Ruger is a better Friday guy than Volantis? And Volantis, I think, is one of the best pitchers in the SEC. But I mean, Ruger just feels like a Friday guy.
I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say. I think the crazier statement would be that Ruger is a better pitcher than Volantis, but I don't think it's a bad spot for him to be in Fridays. And I think especially in the SEC, experience matters. And Ruger just has more of that starting experience right now. And you mentioned he's a 95 guy. He's touching 98 this year, which was unheard of.
He's
for
throwing
him.
95 in like the fourth and fifth inning.
Yeah,
like
he's
the part.
Sitting,
he's
like
sitting
94,
95.
96, and he's hitting 98, which he hasn't done before. So he's definitely gained some in the offseason. Yeah, and it's that experience. He also seems very like controlled, and I don't mean like his pitch control. I mean like mentally controlled, where he doesn't have very high highs, he doesn't have very low lows. It's like you kind of know what you're getting from him each inning. Like when he lets somebody on base, he doesn't panic. There's no difference between him and the windup and the stretch. So yeah, I think that on a Friday means a ton.
I think Volantis is perfect in a Saturday Sunday role because he's such a you blink and you miss it of like wow they haven't had a hit in 3 innings. Which,
yeah.
But I mean Ruger, like I don't know if you saw his wink coming off the mound, like he's got the mustache, the long hair, like I mean he might be the most like of all. He's the Jake Mangum of Hunter Elliott's.
The Jake Mangum of Hunter Elliott's. Like put that on a t-shirt.
He's just an absolute stud though, and I love like everything about watching him pitch. He might be one of my favorite pitchers to watch. Let's slide up before we do into that Globe Life tournament into Alabama, who technically won the Frisco Classic despite losing to Houston on Sunday. They dominated Iowa. They dominated. I know that we were forgetting about who that other team that they played all weekend was.
Oregon State.
They chased Kleinschmidt early. But what do you make of them losing on Sunday to Houston? And I should clarify that I'm one of the people that's got to see Houston, so I know a lot about Houston's roster construction. This might have been one of the weirdest weekends in Houston baseball. They don't throw Paul Schmitz Friday.
Yep.
And for no reason. And then Richie Roman, who's been really, really good for them on Sunday, they used in a flex role on Friday, like it against against Oregon State. Like it was just a weird weekend all around. Kendall Hoffman was a Big 12 player of the weekend this week for his effort against Alabama. LeBron had another meaningless home run. I feel like that's just like the king. Him and Udemark, I think, are the king of the meaningless home runs. And again, Houston's lineup's weird as Trey Broussard didn't play, Climby didn't play, Sabathia DH'd. Like everything about this like Houston team was weird, and I think that that's what went into the Bama loss is that they like Houston just threw shit at a wall and it stuck.
Yeah, I think the more concerning, and I say concerning, the more games that the more of the game that I was more concerned about was what they showed against Oregon State, and it was mostly the back half of that game. To have such a big lead and then almost blow it in the ninth, they still had bases loaded with 1 out, and then luckily, guy throws. Why am I going blank on his name? Throws a Oregon State runner out at home plate to win it. And maybe if there's a better camera angle in Vegas, the game's tied. So that was a struggle from the bullpen. I think that kind of carried over into Sunday. But I think we both said it on Thursday. If Bama gets 2 wins this weekend, we didn't know which 2 they're going to be, but if they got 2, they'd come out of the weekend happy. So I don't think they answered any questions for me, but I also don't think they created any new ones either. I think we we knew what we were going to get. I think Zane Adams once again was very good. That was good to see. Tyler Fay had his best outing of the year so far. Great to see, especially with 1 week going up until SEC play. So, yeah, I'm fine with where this Alabama team sits with 1 week left before conference play. So, yeah, like I said, they didn't answer any questions, but they also didn't create any new ones for me.
I think for me, it reminds me of Washington State on what I said after they lost on Friday night. Is it felt like this was a weekend where they went from a good team to a great team. Like, yeah, great, like LSU in Jacksonville the week before. Like, yeah, great teams go in and just sweep, take care of business against quality opponents like that. And they didn't. They dropped that Houston Sunday game, which kind of makes me is like, yeah, we keep talking about when this program is going to take that next step under Rob Vaughn. And this felt again like another weekend where they could have taken that next step and moved into an upper tier of SEC teams. And they kind of just did what they were supposed to, like go 2 of 3. They beat the good team, but Houston on the back end, they couldn't finish the job. Yeah, they have some bullpen issues, but they hit really well at the front half of the weekend. That's the thing for me is I felt like they just I keep wanting more from Alabama. And then this was a weekend where I'm like, not really ready to buy in on the hype with them just yet.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's move on to teams that had a really electric, or the team that had a really electric Friday night, and then a very disappointing back half. For all of 12 hours, South Carolina fans got to enjoy what it felt like to be relevant again in baseball, and then to come back in the back half. Do you think that they get any of that Friday night magic and steal some of these series in the SEC that are competitive, or do you think it's going to be more like it was at the tail end of the weekend for Clemson where they kind of woke up?
Well, perfect segue into my, I guess, player of the week, Josh Gunther. 7 innings, I think 3 hits, no runs, 10 strikeouts against a very good Clemson lineup. So to answer your question, I guess it depends on what he does or what he turns into. We've never seen him start before. So nobody expected this on Friday. If he can repeat it, then yes, it absolutely gives him a chance on Friday. But that being said, there's a reason all these numbers were career bests, because we haven't seen it before. So we don't know if it's sustainable yet. It's possible it is. It's also possible that it's not. I would lean towards that it's not. I would lean towards he's not going to have this good of an outing every Friday.
And the flip side of that is you also are going to have to face other SEC teams Friday night, guys.
Correct.
So again, you're going to have ones where the offense disappears. Where you run into Ruger Riojas or Tyler Fay.
Aiden Kanak would be a top 5 SEC arm as well. So that was no joke beating him on Friday.
But that's but again, you're like, oh, they hit Aiden Kanak round, and then they scored 2 runs the rest of the weekend. So it's like
exactly. So I don't know. I mean, this is still obviously bottom of the SEC team. It was good, I think, just for morale to get one of these games because I know I projected it on Thursday that they'd get swept. Still surprised they didn't. That seems like after seeing the next 2 days. Thursday or Friday just seems like such an aberration of how that really happened. Like Gunther having just going crazy. But I still think they're going to struggle. I think it's going to be tough for them moving forward. I think we both know that. So didn't learn a whole lot this weekend, but happy that they were able to get one of the 3.
I saw a tweet that actually kind of made me a little bit sad. It was all of them celebrating, and it was somebody quote tweeted it, and it was a South Carolina burner, and it was like, this is a team that won back-to-back national championships in the last 15 years, and now we're celebrating a Friday night. He was like, we need to take a long look in the mirror of where we are as a program. And that's kind of how I feel.
And that's how Clemson responded too, where it's like, we didn't.
It was fun, and it's like, wait a second, this is an SEC team that spent the most in NIL, and this is probably going to be their moment of the year. We'll touch quickly on Missouri as they took care of business against North Dakota State. They have now won 8 in a row, their longest winning streak under Carrick Jackson. They get Illinois, Chicago, so really just hoping that they can stack up some of those wins because, again, they're taking care of business with the games that they're supposed to, which they didn't do last year, but I think clearly when you watch Missouri, there's a very big talent gap between them and the SEC. Anything you want to add, or is that kind of what you're seeing too?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I'm seeing. Obviously, this was, what was it, on Thursday? This was, you said bold prediction. I said that Missouri's going to go 3-0, sweep through another weekend, and they did. A little closer on Saturday, Sunday than you would have liked to see, especially against a team that has 1 win on the year. But, I mean, they're doing what they need to do, especially coming off a year like after doing off a year like last year. Like they need to go into SEC play with confidence. Like if they would be kind of limping in SEC play right now, then it's like, oh boy, here comes another year. At least the roster is so different than last year with like how many new names they have, where they can like kind of dispel like tie themselves mentally from last year's team, where it's like, okay, we are a new team. Let's do what we can. Like we are obviously going to be outmanned from like a position by position standpoint. But hey, if we have to ugly some weekends up to win a game or two, let's do it. And that's kind of seems like what this team, they're running a ton as we expected there. So they are super athletic, and like it's kind of feels like they're going to play that Kentucky style baseball where it's like they're just going to frustrate teams by playing small ball, and they're going to run. They're going to take the extra base all the time. They're going to get hit by pitches. Like it's just going to be one of those frustrating teams because they know that's how they have to win. And they've seemed like so far they've embraced that, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, they have an identity to them. I think last year they didn't really have an identity to them. We'll kind of breeze past LSU too. They're playing right now against Northeastern. I haven't checked the scores, but they had great starting pitching and great bullpen and not very good hitting. Is there any cause of concern? This just feels like one of those weekends where it's like LSU really knows who they are as an identity as a team, and they're just kind of, checking a box, make sure they win, almost like an FCS matchup in football.
I'm concerned. But
interesting.
I was concerned before. Like I said, I talked about this last week and the weekend before. Like this isn't like if this was a one-off weekend where it's like this was the only weekend that they looked kind of nonchalant. But we saw it week one, and like they had to hit the brakes a couple times against Milwaukee to do that. Then they looked good week two against, who was in that tournament? Indiana, Notre Dame, and
UCF.
UCF, that's right. Lackluster against McNeese State. And then you have Dartmouth and Northeastern, who this year are not good at all. And you basically just sleepwalk through it. I don't know. It feels like, but obviously the talent on this team, don't get me wrong, can flip a switch and say like, okay, like maybe we just need bigger matchups. And the best way I can kind of compare that would be UCLA. This kind of where it kind of feels like UCLA, people are like, oh my gosh, UCLA's gotten beat twice. It's also like, does UCLA, who's ranked number one, who majority of people think are the best team in the country, do they care about these small games? And the answer so far has been no, because they played TCU, who's a top 10 team, rolled them. They came into Arlington, questions about after getting beat by San Diego State on Tuesday. People are like, okay, is this UCLA team for real? Damn right, they are for real. So it feels like one of those, and it's like maybe LSU is just going to be that team where it's like we're just going to sleepwalk through these games that don't matter, and we're going to have to, and we're going to play good against in the SEC weekends.
I will say the way the SEC's kind of played up these last 3 weeks, they really do kind of have to stack up wins early because the backstretch is just such going to be a gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you worry about, because we've seen it with A&M last year, despite not winning the national championship, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, about this complacency of success? And that's kind of what I saw this weekend. It was just a complacency thing.
Yeah, there's a reason that a team that won the national championship hasn't gone back to Omaha since 2017. It's one, it's a roster turnover thing, and two, it can be a complacent / hey, we can just show up to the ballpark and we know we're going to win type of attitude. I'm not saying this team has it; it's too early to tell. But also, if you look at the games they've won so far, they have those big explosive innings because of how talented this offense is, but it's not like they've had games where it's like, okay, they're putting up 1 to 2 runs almost every inning, or it's like sustained success throughout a whole game. It's like they have that explosion there where it's like they put up these giant innings and then just in the ball game, which could just be the identity of this team. And it can be like, you could almost compare it to like a crazy offense in college football where it's just like, hey, we can just turn it on at some points, and other times we're not just going to be able to go 80 yards and 15 plays against you.
So kind of like the Bobo where they save the good place for SEC play.
Maybe. So it's like, where up and down the order, like you tell me, like up and down the order, it doesn't feel like they're just like extremely hard outs every inning. Like, cause they haven't been swinging like that. It's just like,
but it's a hard lineup to navigate.
It is.
That's the
but
weird
if you
thing.
catch them in one of those hot innings, then they could put up 8 on you, like before you blink. So it really is just like which version do you get on which day.
But they could also easily like go 7 innings where they don't score a run. I think they have
Yep.
the
They
perfect.
did this weekend against Dartmouth. It's like
Yeah.
so it's crazy.
They do have, I think, the perfect midweek as they go to the Teague on Wednesday night to face UL.
Yeah.
I got to see UL in a midweek. I didn't really think that they were that impressive, but I mean, they don't quit. Like, they are a phone booth team. So maybe it'll be good to kind of have them be humbled. Before we talk about that Globe Life tournament, Arkansas Wednesday wins 1-0. Or sorry, Tuesday loses 12-4. Wednesday wins 1-0. Friday loses 4-3, and they probably should have been shut out.
Yeah.
And then everything that I had prepared to talk about Arkansas, they win the next 2 games 20-1. So they kind of it felt like a hot, cold, hot where they're going to be going into SEC play rolling. They already got their kind of like DVH lull out of the way. Any cause for concern on what you saw Friday night, or is it just a kid pitching the game of his life?
No, I mean, I was already concerned. I've talked about this
Yeah.
ad nauseum, kind of, where I've been lower on this Arkansas team than pretty much anybody else. I had them ranked 11th going into this week. I've got them 15th now. It just seems like you lose 2 games in a week, and they're to Arkansas State and UT Arlington. Don't see how you get dropped. Don't see how there's not concern, especially when, as a team, the crazy thing with Arkansas is like when they got beat Friday, any other year they'd have been like, oh, like everybody would have been like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? But the way they've looked so far, it's like when that happened Friday, it was like, oh wow, hey, like Arkansas got upset again. Why'd they get upset? Oh, because they didn't put up very many runs and they struck out a lot. It's starting to seem like a pattern, which is very concerning because they're striking out double-digit times a game right now. So and they're
not getting anything out of Brumbaugh or Pompey either.
Hey, Brumbaugh got his first RBI of the season on Sunday. So
it's week 3. That's what I mean.
I know. Pompey's wasn't even starting by the end of the weekend. He's because they have they have to do something. They have to figure something out. It can't just be all. Aloy hasn't been great outside of like some power surges. They can't just be relying completely on Ryder Helfrich. And Souza. I mean,
I should say Ruiz gets on base. Kozel looks good and Helfrich looks good, but they started Souza at third.
Souza's at third. Yeah, Kozel's going, man. I always get Kozel and Souza mixed up. So it's one of those. Yeah, I'm very concerned. Now, I guess level of concern you could talk about because I still think they're a top 15 team in the country, but there's going to be some things they have to figure out on the offensive side of the offensive standpoint. And the concern is that it's a roster makeup issue and it's not just an approach issue. An approach issue can be fixed. Like you can kind of fix that, whether it's through whether it's some philosophy with a hitting coach or like there's certain things they're gonna have to fix with swings. That can be fixed. If it's a roster issue, which was partially what it looks like, because none of these transfers doesn't look like they've hit on any of them except for possibly Ruiz. Like, and Micah New coming into the year was supposed to be the surefire one on that team. He's struggling. So that's where the question marks are. Is this a roster construction issue or is this just a philosophy on the offensive side of the standpoint issue?
Yeah, that was my concern preseason is that it feels like DVH has rolled dice, and hit, and he hasn't had that snake eyes. And this might be the year that he's rolled up snake eyes. I know Gackle's been good in the Friday night role, but is there any reason for you to flip-flop those with move Gibbler into Friday and Gackle into Saturday? Or is that just kind of overcomplicating it for no reason?
Yeah, I think it is. I think he's doing okay. I mean, it's another standpoint. If Gackle, even though he's supposed to be great, you feel like as an Arkansas team, if you only give up 4 runs in a game, you should win, and that's in an SEC weekend, and that's especially against UT Arlington. So I think he did his job. There's no doubt about that. And also, I think from a mentality standpoint, we saw what he dealt with last year when they tried to put him in the starting. As soon as we wouldn't have started last year, he just couldn't. It just didn't work out. His ERA was in the 6s as a starter, and it was in the 2s as a bullpen guy. I don't think you want to. If you start moving him around and messing with him, I think that could get in his head a little bit. Where
I was going to say, I think it messes with him.
Maybe I'm not meant to be a starter, and that could just be the gist of it. So I think you have to leave it alone and just ride it out. But like I said, he hasn't been a problem at all this year.
No, not at all. And I should say that's like a very nitpicky thing, if anything at all. let's move into that Globe Life one, as I think that this is where we're going to spend the most time on it. They all three had the exact same weekends,
Mhm.
where A&M dominates in both of their games, but gets dominated by UCLA. Tennessee looked the worst against Arizona State and Virginia Tech, but kind of the score against UCLA. And then Mississippi State almost beats UCLA and plays Virginia Tech the worst. What did you make out of these three teams? Now, I'll give you my opinions because I got to see it up close after.
Mhm. I think I think it was a very successful weekend all around. Because I know you worded it like last Thursday. You said, "What's this going to do for the SEC if these teams go 3-6 or something like that, or if they only get 2 wins in Arlington?" I think all these teams going 2 and I mean, obviously they're combined 6-3, so complete flip flop, and all three losses were to the best team in the country, and I beside and even like the Tennessee game against UC. If we just go through like break these down, the Tennessee game where it's like they got a few good swings on Tegan Coombs, but Coombs looked good, and it looked like a normal weekend they could have possibly hung on. They were like the defense made it look like that was a weird one where the defense made the score look a lot worse, and the bullpen just crapped the bed. But it felt closer. A&M felt like, okay, this is the first good team we've played all year, and we hit a buzzsaw and weren't ready. And it kind of like it felt like when UCLA bounced on them early, it was kind of like,
They
okay,
punted. I should say that.
yeah, it was
They
like
they
we weren't ready
when it
for
was
this
4-0
onslaught.
and Moss got chased, they punted. But
Yeah, and then the same
I'll
thing.
say
Mississippi State looked great, and then Mississippi State looked like they were in that, like they obviously were in that game, had a chance to win it. So it's like, yeah, I think all three teams come out of here very happy with how their weekend went. You want things to work on. We know all three teams have things to work on. And I think all three teams improved by playing the schedule.
yes, I think the weird one for me was I saw Tennessee against Virginia Tech, and I didn't think Virginia Tech was really
Mm.
that crazy, and they kind of looked the worst against them. I thought that from what the ACC both told me, it was just Brent Renfro, and the bullpen's kind of what do you got? I did think it was a little bit of cause for concern that A&M
Well,
and
Ethan
Mississippi
Grimm,
State.
real quick, I think Ethan Grimm is good. I was like that
Yeah,
kid as a freshman and we thought it was only Renfro because we didn't know what else they're going to have. This
yeah,
from the first 3
he
weeks of
was
the
good. Yeah,
season, this kid has been like seems like a up and coming star in the ACC. I'll say that Tennessee didn't play great against them for sure, and the score obviously is the worst, only being a 2-run win. But yeah, that to beat Graham like that was I was impressed by that and happy with how they kind of fought because the 2 losses to Kent State were when they couldn't score late. So it's like, okay, this
yes.
team has
I,
some
I was
fight
good. That was
at
actually
the end of
going
games.
to be my point. Was that you can look at okay Arizona State when Mississippi State and A&M got into their bullpen, they punished them. When Tennessee got into it, they were kind of let them. But Blanco was really really good on Sunday, and he's been a concern
Mm-hmm.
for them. Um, and I think just the grittiness of it too is that when you don't have your best stuff to chip away, win games, have the bullpen hold guys, I think was the big thing that I learned from Tennessee.
Yeah.
For Mississippi State, the takeaway for me is that this is an old ass team. Like it's Ace Reese and Aiden Teal, who again Aiden Teal should have been drafted last year,
Yeah.
and then it's senior grad, senior grad. They got a few things that they got to work on with the platooning. Obviously, the back end of the bullpen was a little bit of cause for concern against Virginia Tech as they were just launching balls. Um,
Yeah.
that was a weird game. It was a long game. By the end of it, I think everybody just wanted to be done. And then everything that I thought I was going to say very similar things, and then Mississippi State, had UCLA by the balls and probably should have beat them. Obviously, the missed bunt or the missed ball call. I mean, where the OO count like that you could jump out of the way of, and the game's over anyway.
Yeah. Or and the
Um,
pitch before was a strike that the umpire called a ball. And
yes,
then so it's like so he missed both, and it was like
and maybe don't throw it right down the middle to Rock Chalowski. Like
yeah, the best player when the best player in the country up, yeah, don't throw a fastball mid.
and Gasparino, maybe don't throw to Gasparino.
God,
God, he was on a heater. Um, and then for A&M, I would say this. Obviously, they had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. I think that there's a lot of positives to take away from that UCLA game. Like Gavin Lyons, I think, deserves to be in the weekend rotation. And then again, Aiden Sims on Sunday was phenomenal
Mhm.
as well. Um, I think A&M ran into the number one team in the country without their 3 and 4 hole hitter. Like, I think that's really kind of what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
like I said, yeah, they just got jumped on so early where it's like they got it was one of those moments where it's like you get smacked in the face, and how do you like, it was just like, yeah, it just seemed like a little bit shocking to them and didn't know how to bounce back real quick.
at least for me, I mean, this is probably a 5-minute thing where they go from Gavin Grahovic smoking one 370 and the UCLA game makes a great play, and then Rock makes a Jeter-esque play to just Weston Moss not having it. Like
Mhm.
single, walk, sack fly, and then you blink and it's like 4-0, and it's like, oh well, A&M can score 4 runs in an inning. Like it's a good lineup, and Jake Dewar homered, and then UCLA kind of just did what good teams do and responded.
Yeah.
I think the thing for me is while I can applaud UCLA's 2-strike hitting, I think that Weston Moss not being able to put guys away, I think was a little bit of a cause for concern because it's kind of glass half empty, glass half full thing. And then I think the lineup is just missing Hakopian and Jordan. Hakopian, I think, by the way, is a long-term thing. I've heard it's a herniated disc, is the rumor going around. And we haven't heard anything about Wesley Jordan. And I think that A&M can sustain one of them being out and having Sawyer Farr step in, but I don't think they can have both of them out. I think that that's really where the drop-off kind of comes in.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder what happened on Friday because I said it on Thursday. I thought Hakopian should just sit and not play at all. Then he played on Friday. There he hits a home run and is at bat. And it's like, okay, well, he obviously must be healthy, and then gets pulled after his second AB. Where
He
it
had a
looks like,
foul ball where he went.
yeah, his second AB looked like something happened. So it's like I hope it's not something that happened because it was already injured. Because that's tough.
From
But
what I could
we'll
kind
see.
of gather is I don't think that A&M feels it's like I think it's just like a rest thing. Like hey, you thought you were at 90%, you're actually closer to 70.
Well, if
Let's
it's a
just
rest thing, then let it be a rest thing. That's where like it can't be like, okay, we're gonna rest him so he's gonna DH. It's like especially if swinging is the issue. Yeah, it's like let him rest. Then he's extremely important to this roster.
yeah, it'll be interesting. Is I think A&M again, their pitching has been so unexpectedly good that it was kind of almost you knew that this was going to happen where they were going to get chased. I kind of think that they should move Lyons into Saturday, move Weston Moss into kind of more of that high leverage role that he was in last year, where he gets 9 outs because one of the starters gets chased early, or just saves it, and then they move up Lyons, because I always thought Lyons was going to be the Sunday guy anyway. But that's the thing for me is I came away really impressed, especially with how A&M responded on Sunday. Is this really does feel like a different team than the 25 team.
Oh, it's definitely a different team, than last year. You
Yeah,
can
and
tell
like I said, I think that for me, I know that
More
A&M
fight,
could have
for
gone
sure.
0-3, and I wouldn't have changed my opinion on them. Just psychologically how they respond, and they get punched in the mouth by UCLA and immediately flush it and go dominate a pretty good Arizona State team.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, we've talked about all of our 3 players, but we'll give you a little summary. I picked Aiden Teal, Brendan Lawson from Florida, and then Connor Matheson in relief. Oh, we never talked about Florida, did we?
No, we Florida and Auburn are both worth touching on real quick.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Sorry, I thought
I was going to bring it up. Yeah, I was about to bring it up.
Yeah. Let's do Auburn because they're a little bit alphabetical. They lose on Friday night where the bullpen blows it, and then just dominate Nebraska at the back half of the weekend. I watched that Friday night game. I didn't see the other 2 games, but the bullpen was shaky, and then I think Auburn learned a valuable lesson that I think a lot of SEC teams are going to learn here very shortly. Is that if you don't put teams away early and you let them kind of hang around, chip away, you're going to be very, very disappointed in the 9th inning. I felt like Auburn, like Rimber, like that second and third where they got 2 strikeouts, I think was just kind of a big indication that you knew that they were going to lose. But what did you see from Auburn?
Yeah, I watched all 3 of these games. Good sign. Even though they lost, Jake Marciano was great again. Very good.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal.
Yeah, and we talked about it, and we said if chances are if Auburn loses the game in the series, it's going to be Friday because of Ty Horn. It wasn't because Ty Horn was good for Nebraska. He wasn't great, What I am most thrilled with from this weekend is we've talked about bounce back games after getting like they could have easily just been like, oh crap, after Friday, but they weren't. They absolutely showed up Saturday, and I think it was what 4 runs in the first inning, and if something I think like 4 runs in the first inning, and it was like immediately like okay, we're here, and the offense just all weekend long because they've been kind of on a struggle from being like up and down, and we know how talented this offense is. They finally put it all together, so that was an extremely good sign, especially being the weekend, probably the best group of pitching they've seen like in a weekend series so far.
Yeah.
So for them,
They go 4 in the first, 4 in the second,
yeah,
and then when Nebraska kind of chips away, get back in it at 8-4, they score 7 unanswered and run roll
Yep.
them.
Yeah, so for them to put up 8, 15, and then 12 in a weekend when their offense has been so up and down, that was awesome to see. I think we could look back on it if this offense goes on an absolute tear, like we expect them to, just how good this like the lineup should be, where it's like okay, this was the weekend where things finally clicked.
Yeah, I think that this was kind of for me, of more of what's to come for this team. This is a lineup that we all expected to see the entire year. Chatterton on Saturday was phenomenal too, as well. So he didn't allow a single
Good,
hit.
yeah, which was good. Yeah, which was very good to see. They need him to be very good.
Auburn challenged themselves this weekend with Nebraska. They could have very easily done what other SEC teams have done and folded the 10 after a tournament and said they welcome a high quality Nebraska team. And I think that they're going to be rewarded for playing somebody like them.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Florida Gators, who only played 2. They erased a 3-run first inning deficit off of Aiden King on Saturday. They didn't play Sunday, but I mean, I have Florida extremely, extremely high following this weekend. This feels like an Omaha, Florida team. And if they play like they did this weekend against a team that I think is the class of the ACC, like there's very few teams in the country that can beat them in a weekend series.
Yeah, this was a big statement weekend for me. I mean, I moved Florida up to 8, and I think I had them 12 going into this week because they just needed to show me, and they showed me. I think they are absolutely an Omaha caliber team. Liam Peterson, another good start. Looked great against his still only bad one's been that week 1. So he's looked good once again. Aiden King, we will see. Obviously, he came out of the game with forearm cramps. As a pitcher, but like as someone who's been around the sport for a long time, forearm cramps in pitchers are scary. They can lead to other things. They can be signs of other things. So I hope that's not the case. I know he's like, well, they're going to find more out after this week, but yeah, I hope he's okay.
Our boy Andrew was on the scene down there, and he said that Kevin O'Sullivan said he was cramping a little multiple times. It wasn't just a one-time thing. That might just be one of those things where, it was a sold-out crowd at the Light. It's probably your first time pitching real opponents. Hopefully, like you said, it's not a long-term thing, but
I hope so.
I have Florida at 5, by the way.
Yeah,
I think
you could put it anywhere. I think you could, anywhere between anywhere between 5 and 10. You can justify
it. Jacob Kendall, who hasn't really had the start that I'm sure Florida's wanted, he had that monster home run to kind of push it over the edge on Friday night. And I think the big thing for me was that they weren't afraid to attack Cuvée. Obviously, I know that they had the hit by pitch, but there was a few times where you thought that the pitchers were kind of going to work around Cuvée, and they just went out and attacked him and really did dominate. One of the best hitters in college baseball.
Yeah, both their guys, Alex Sosa too. Yeah, both their big name guys. They really shut him down.
Yeah, Liam Peterson again. It was total bounce back, like we all knew he would. The bullpen behind him was really, really good. And then on Saturday, a come from behind victory. Again, Cuvée hits that sac fly, and then they immediately go respond. Ethan Swarrick hits the kind of haymaker, if you will, for Florida. And I mean, this was an A+ weekend in every sense of the word for Florida. This felt like a vintage Florida Gators team from like 6-7 years ago.
And I think part of it too is the guys that stepped up, and the reason they won these games were the guys that you needed to see step up.
Yes.
Whereas I think it wasn't like this was without Cade Kurland. So it's also like if Cade Kurland would have made the big hit, it's like, okay, we could see that. But the fact that, Kyle Jones has been so good. Ethan Sirwich transferred in, has been so good. Blake Sear, is he finally going to is this finally going to be the breakout season for Blake Sear? And I think what gets understated, Carson Bowen seems like the perfect fit at catcher for this team.
Oh, he's like BT Rypel from a few years ago.
Yes, that's actually a perfect way to put it. Because he feels like on a team that is filled with all these extremely talented kids that have just rained on talent their entire lives. He feels like the fighter of the team, where it's like, hey,
Yes.
You're not going to mess with my guys. Like he's the gritty one, and
he's been to Omaha. He knows what it takes to go to Omaha,
and it transforms this team into like a grittier team because they look at him and they like in. So I think he is the perfect kind of combo that they haven't had. BT Rathall's perfect. I'm glad you said that because it really does feel like that kind of fit. And just so it's coming from guys that you needed to see step up are the ones that stepped up, and I think that's a very, very good sign of things to come.
And Lawson was really good. He was one of my SEC players of the week.
Yeah, I don't even really have to mention him.
I know, that's what I said.
He's just cruising as usual. It feels like.
I mean, this is just a good. And the weird thing for me is a lot of Florida's concerns for us were external stuff and focus.
Yeah.
And instead what you see is a veteran team. You saw a team that, despite their coach being out, despite losing a pitching coach, like Liam Peterson just goes to work after a bad start. Carson Bowen just being mature behind the dish. Like this is a veteran team, and it feels like they've already kind of gone through their lows and are going to be a solid team here in SEC play.
Yeah. We'll see. Real. I mean, it's easy to get up from the Miami series.
Yes.
I'll say that it's like they could have no coach in the dugout, and guys are going to be hyped and figure things out. Let's see what happens come conference weekend. I think they have shown a lot, like you said, that the experience seems to be paying off. They need Cade Krillin healthy, though. This can't be another season where something's lingering all year long.
Yes, that is all we have time for. We have the Rydell Report coming up here in the next 2 minutes. We'll be back on Thursday to talk through every single SEC game. It's probably going to be a little bit of an abbreviated show. We'll probably do a little bit of a mailbag because this is going to be one of those weekends where 90% of the SEC teams are going to sweep inferior opponents. We're not going to learn anything. But stay tuned for the Rydell Report as they have already kicked off play in those mid-majors. See everybody back here Thursday.